Is the future of American innovation being choked by 1,000 pages of state-level red tape before the technology even leaves the garage?
That is really the core conflict we're diving into today.
It seems like it.
Yeah, this whole deep dive is about the political, the economic, and, the labor forces that are battling right now to shape this AI revolution. We've pulled together sources detailing this immense struggle between federal deregulation, a huge wave of state laws, and then these very specific demands from powerful labor unions.
So our mission is to figure out how this fight is actually determining where AI is allowed to thrive.
And where it's being, well, intentionally stalled.
And this tension isn't some far-off theoretical thing. It's happening right now, and the stakes are, frankly, global. If you follow this conversation, you know the federal position has been pretty clear.
Oh, absolutely.
The Trump administration signaled a very business-friendly, kind of light-touch approach to AI regulation. They explicitly prioritized American innovation, especially in competition with China.
They see all that bureaucracy as a direct threat to our lead.
But that's where the whole system just hits a wall, a regulatory shockwave, you could call it. While the federal government wants freedom for innovators, the states are moving so fast to fill that void.
And you have to hear this number. Lawmakers, collectively, filed over 1,000 AI bills.
1,000.
1,000.
Huh.
Across all 50 states in just 2024 and 2025 alone. I mean, that is a truly staggering volume of proposed legislation. States are trying to impose their own guardrails on development. And this massive, fragmented effort creates instant friction for any company.
It sounds like a complete nightmare for any startup trying to operate across state lines. Okay, so let's unpack that federal strategy first. The core stance from what I'm seeing in the AI action plan was simple.
Get out of the way.
Basically, yeah. It explicitly called for removing red tape and onerous regulation.
And they didn't just suggest it. They put real financial leverage behind it to try and curb state power. The action plan directs the Office of Management and Budget, right, the OMB, the agency overseeing the federal budget. It directs them to actually weigh a state's AI regulatory climate before making decisions on federal funding.
Wait. So you're saying the federal government is using the national credit card to force states to play nice?
That's a good way to put it.
So if a state passes some burdensome law to slow down innovation, they could actually risk losing federal research grants or deployment money.
Precisely. The stipulation is that if state laws, and I'm quoting here, hinder the effectiveness of federal awards, then those funds might be limited. That is a very powerful incentive for state lawmakers to think twice before, throttling new tech.
And we saw how serious the administration was about this when they tried an even bigger move, that really controversial AI moratorium.
Oh, yeah, that would have prevented states from enforcing or even passing laws about AI models at all, but that attempt failed. Pretty dramatically, actually.
And it did. The sources show the pushback was immense, and it was bipartisan, which is interesting. It led to the moratorium being stripped from the final act.
Which then passed the Senate 99-0.
99-0.
And what's so fascinating there isn't just the politics. It's what it says about the institutions. A unanimous vote against federal preemption like that, it signals this really deep shared distrust of giving the federal government too much control over a brand new technology.
So the conflict over who even gets to regulate AI, federal or state, is still very, very active.
Absolutely. And even when the state legislatures stall, the state attorneys general are stepping in, creating another layer of risk.
And this isn't just happening in so-called blue states, right?
Not at all. We see people like Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton settling an investigation into an AI healthcare company over deceptive claims about its technology. It just goes to show you that enforcement, especially around consumer protection, is heating up across the entire political map.
So for a developer, the landscape is less like a map and more like a minefield. Enforcement could come from any direction.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay. Let's pivot to the second major source of friction here, organized labor. When AI promises these massive productivity gains, I mean automation, the groups whose jobs are most likely to be changed or eliminated.
They naturally become the biggest force pushing back. This is where we see these intense demands coming from what the innovators in our sources often call special interests.
Groups fighting to protect the current job structure.
Exactly. Against technological efficiency. For major labor organizations like the CWA, the Communications Workers of America, and the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, a core demand is what they call the human in command rule.
Okay, can you break that down? What does that rule mean in practice? If an algorithm says who gets a promotion, does a human just have to rubber stamp it, or do they actually have to be able to override it?
The latter. It means that critical employment decisions cannot be made solely by an algorithm. The CFLU, which is the California Federation of Labor Unions, states it very emphatically. They say decisions like hiring, discipline, terminations, or wage setting are just too important for AI alone.
And the AFL-CIO demands that workers have to be able to appeal any AI-driven decision without retaliation.
Which effectively forces a human manager back into the workflow. It creates a mandatory middleman that, by its very nature, slows down the efficiency you would get from automation in the first place.
And beyond just forcing a human into the loop, labor groups are focusing hard on data rights. That gives them a grip on the AI's fuel, which is the data workers generate.
That is such a critical point. So workers are demanding the right to access, correct, and delete data collected about them, which, on the surface seems fair.
Sure.
But the crucial part is that labor groups also argue they should be able to influence how employers use their data, especially if that data is being used to train a new AI system that could, automate their own jobs.
So a union could argue that data from a worker's efficiency monitor shouldn't be used to train an AI that makes their entire job obsolete. I mean, that creates a massive regulatory bottleneck.
A huge one. It directly impacts the foundational technology. And the most restrictive policy we see is the call for outright bans on certain capabilities, no matter how they might improve efficiency or safety. The CFLU explicitly wants to prohibit using facial recognition, predictive behavioral analysis, and profiling.
On or off the job?
On or off the job. That's not just regulating anymore. That's stopping progress cold in key areas like security and safety optimization.
So what about the cost? I mean, safety and testing are vital, but who pays for all that?
Well, this is a point stressed by advocates like the NNU National Nurses United. They insist the burden of demonstrating safety has to rest squarely on the developers and the deployers, not the workers.
Through these rigorous impact assessments.
Right. And while that's an understandable position, that approach adds significant cost and time to market for any new AI solution. It can make entire classes of innovation just economically non-viable.
All this friction brings us to the ultimate counterpoint, the perspective of the techno-optimists. The venture capitalists, the entrepreneurs, they see AI providing something they call super agency. What do they mean by that?
Super agency is this idea that AI will act as your personal, hyper-competent assistant. It's available 24/7 on your phone, a medical assistant, a legal assistant, a personal tutor. The optimists believe this will fundamentally elevate humanity through an abundance of services and prosperity.
And they see all the things we just discussed, the human in command rules, data restrictions, the bans, as the primary obstacle to achieving that abundance.
Correct. The core frustration, according to our sources, is that progress is being actively stifled by what they call special interest unions, plaintiffs' attorneys, who fear the change that automation brings.
They argue that this fear is needlessly delaying progress for everybody.
This is exactly why you hear people talking about rolling back things like medical liability in selective ways. If an AI can discover new drugs or diagnose cancer faster, but the developers immediately face massive litigation risk because the system isn't 100% perfect.
Innovation just stops before it starts. The risk calculation doesn't favor American citizens getting better, faster, or cheaper services.
And we can see the real-world consequences of this. This restrictive environment affects where companies choose to operate. Regulation becomes the deciding factor. Just look at the autonomous vehicle industry.
Right, which needs clear legal frameworks to even exist.
Aurora, a major autonomous trucking company, is headquartered in California.
Yeah.
But where are they running their first heavy-duty trucks?
Let me guess. Not in California.
Precisely. They are running those trucks in Texas. And the reason they give is that the modern regulatory environment in Texas allows innovation to proceed with predictability, while blue states like California are seen as actively stifling it.
So innovation is literally fleeing regulatory density.
That's the tangible result. It's a sentiment that seems to cut across the whole tech sector. It's about the freedom to build, which really just means freedom from friction.
And you see this exact same battle playing out in education, which is one of the most union-heavy sectors in the country.
Oh, clearly. AI offers what could be the best learning technology we've ever created. It can customize lessons in a way a textbook or even a single teacher never could. But the strongest opposition to its adoption comes from
teachers' unions. And the reason, according to the sources, is simple. Technology changes the job.
Exactly. When you implement customized AI tutors and assessment systems, the role of the teacher changes dramatically. So the solution, according to these innovators, is to support what they call the freedom model.
Which they find in places like Texas. What does that actually look like in a classroom?
Well, they're talking about implementing new AI-based assessment methods like one-on-one oral interviews with AIs that give immediate tailored feedback. They're doing this in non-traditional schools because the state's regulatory structure allows it.
And it works because the unions, as one source puts it, hate the idea and won't do it themselves in their established school systems.
The absence of that interference is what accelerates the progress.
So to wrap this up, we have this fundamental three-way clash. AI promises this unprecedented scale and prosperity, almost like the Industrial Revolution, but it's hitting a severe regulatory choke point.
You have a federal administration pushing to deregulate to win the global race. But that's being overwhelmed by over 1,000 fragmented state-level bills and these specific labor demands that just want to protect the status quo.
And the result is a climate that basically encourages the builders, the capital, the innovation itself to migrate to states that prioritize speed and growth.
They're choosing that freedom model, overlayered restrictive protectionism.
Mm.
It's creating this internal competition where some parts of the U.S. are actively choosing to become less competitive.
It really makes you wonder about the long-term cost to the entire nation. If global competition, especially against China, hinges on fast, aggressive adoption of AI, what's the price we all pay when powerful special interests in some of our most powerful states actively prevent the very progress America needs to stay ahead?
And that raises an important question for you to think about. If the goal is rapid, safe deployment of technologies that raise living standards, how many life-changing breakthroughs are we sacrificing by allowing bureaucratic inertia and localized fear to dictate the speed of a revolutionary technology? Something to consider as you watch this all unfold.